I had profound experiences in the hospital. It's like one foot was in this realm and one in the next. I spent almost 6 months there. There was 18 reconstructive surgeries trying to put me back together, and they did a beautiful job, by the way. Miracles happened. There was one circumstance that I told Dr. Moody I would share because it's relevant to this conference. At the point where I finally was starting to feel better, I mean, I was in surgical recovery. I was in ICU for over 3 months, you know, and so there wasn't visitors or anything else, but I kept throwing pulmonary embolisms, you know, blood clots that would lodge in my lungs. I had severe pneumonias. Everything that could have happened to kill me did, but I didn't die except for the brief moment that I was out of the body there. As people started coming to visit me, and I knew most of them, they were family members and they were friends, and they were people from work and folks from the neighborhood, but a couple came in, which I thought were a couple. It was a man and a woman, and I didn't recognize them. I thought, I don't know who they are. How, you know, I was embarrassed. How do I acknowledge them? I don't remember these people. And then they introduced themselves not as a couple, but they were my original trauma team. One was the trauma nurse, and the other one was the head ER doc when they had life-flighted me in. And I thought, my goodness, how kind of you to come see me here. In fact, I'd been transferred to a different hospital. And that's a funny story that I'll briefly tell. I was life-flighted to a hospital that was not in my insurance network, you know, and so there was this big to-do about, well, gosh, we've got to transfer him to a different hospital. Now, the doctors were saying, you can't transfer this guy. My older brother, who was an EMT, said, there's no way you're moving him. There's no way you can do that. In this strange experience of me having one foot in this realm and one foot in that realm, I continued to have communication with my deceased wife. Beautiful things, personal things. She wanted her special ring to go to her niece. And she wanted her fancy dresses to go to her sister-in-laws, and she wanted to be buried in the same coffin with the baby in her arms. She didn't want to be buried separately, and she was communicating all this to me. We were having these conversations. Well, I was ventilated and couldn't talk. The family, as you can imagine, was so bereaved. I mean, they'd lost half of us. They were told I probably wouldn't make it. My wife's family was deciding, where are we going to bury her? They had a burial plot down in southern Utah, 5 hours away from where we lived. My family was saying, well, yeah, but if Jeff dies, shouldn't we bury them together? There was all this turmoil and decisions to make about what was going to happen. My experience was I was having these powerful communications with my deceased wife. She was making known her wishes as far as what she wanted to have happen. She wanted to be buried near our home so that our 7-year-old son would have a place to come see Mom that was near, where he could get to. Well, in the whole turmoil of transferring me, and they brought the ambulance crew in, and the ambulance crew said, we can't, we're not moving this guy. They had to bring Life Flight in to move me 2 miles from LDS Hospital to University Hospital. And in that process, they briefly took the ventilator out, and I was able to speak with the family gathered saying, here's what I'm experiencing. I'm having these conversations. This is what Tamara wants. She's to be buried near our home. The baby's to be buried with her. And the family honored it in a beautiful way. But see, they all thought that it was all falling apart. You know, this is falling apart. How can they transfer him? They were angry. They were upset. And yet what was really happening was it was falling into place. There's no accidents in life. Had that not happened, they would have never taken the ventilator out. I would have never been able to share these things. And although I could not speak very well, I was able to eke out these things that were happening and let them honor that. Moving past that to this couple that had come in when I'm in surgical recovery. My trauma team. And they're going through small talk about how are you feeling. The doctor said, gosh, we've never seen anyone with your injuries alive, let alone survive them. I mean, you look great. We're amazed you made it. We're amazed you're here. And then the nurse began to tear up. And she said, we've got to tell you what happened. That's why we've come. Now, the nurse was the first to speak. And she said, I was the first one to go down into the triage area when you were brought in. And she said, as I walked in the room, I was absolutely affronted by love, by pure love. She said, in fact, you appeared to be surrounded by light. Now, in my mind and heart, I'm thinking, wow, this was when I was surrounded by light, saying that profound goodbye. Could this possibly be the chronological order of things that happened? And then she shared with me, she said, I actually saw her. I saw your deceased wife standing by you. And she said, it was so startling, I ran to get the doctor. She ran to get the doctor to say, you've got to come down here. Something is very strange and yet profound. No, the doctor spoke up. And he said, I did not see that. But he said, boy, did I feel it. I feel it. In fact, we knew the extent of your injuries. We didn't expect you'd make it. We were giving you all the morphine that we could to make you comfortable. But he said, then I began to have communications from your deceased wife, explaining why we had to save you. And he pulled in 5 other surgeons, and they worked for 16 hours dealing with my injuries to save my life. And the doctor was even a little emotional. But for clinicians to share that with me and say, we had this profound experience, and me knowing, well, wow, that's when I was saying goodbye and knowing I had to get back in the body, was very validating for me. Because I wondered, am I crazy? I knew what I had experienced, but I didn't talk about it much. I held it very, very tightly. But that was a rare piece. The doctor has become a dear friend of mine. We still have lunch every other month, and we get together, and it was based on this experience.